Boom. Tick, tick. Now I can start talking. So hello, everyone. Hello, Facebook land. Hello, if you're watching this in the future. And thank you for joining us live if you're here now. My name is Sarah, and here is the first installment of my very random online podcast called Let's Talk Horses. I mean, as far as scheduling and being on time for things, I'm terrible at that. So but I got excited this year, 2024. I mean, we're a month in basically, but I read a meme on Facebook the other day that said, my New Year's starts on the 1st of February, 2024, because January was just like the warm up. And I was like, I like that. I'm going to go with that as well. Because January's over. I'm like, where did it even go? So here we go. This is my first episode. Who cares? Exactly. My first episode, of 2024 for Let's Talk Horses. And I have an amazing special guest with me that I'm very excited to introduce. I'm probably going to mess up her last name, but I'm going to give it a go anyway because I love it. So welcome, Diana Vortov Gardella. I did it wrong.
But you did the last one good. That's okay.
Okay,
That's
good.
what matters.
Thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
Yay. So Diana, you're a access consciousness facilitator, you're a conscious horse, conscious rider facilitator, and basically a lot of what I talk about on this podcast is based on the tools of access consciousness and more specifically about conscious horse, conscious rider. But like we were sort of talking about off air, it's an opportunity to talk about horses. And for two horse girls like us, it's like, bring it on, basically.
Because let's talk horses. What else would you like to talk about at this podcast?
Exactly.
Come on.
Exactly. So just tell me, the first thing I love hearing from people is, how did horses come into your life?
Well, it was a bit of explaining to my parents that I really don't want to do any other sports than horses. But of course, I went through other sports that they wanted me to be a tennis player and skier and everything else. And then I ended up explaining them that horses are the thing that's the most important thing in my life for me. And they had to agree with that because I was just cranky if they were trying to put me somewhere else. So that's how I chose to hang out with horses. And well, I mean, my mom always tells me a story that I was a 3-year-old kind of wobbly baby, and they were somewhere on like a family trip or family holiday, and then she turned somewhere, and then she turned back, and she seen me standing in the middle of a massive horse herd, just kind of like being there in my diaper with the horses, and she was like, "Oh shite." I was like, what am I going to do? And then the owner of the horses started to scream at us like, oh my God, this is a disaster. They're going to kill her. But me as a little baby, I always knew that horses are my best friends. So my mom kind of like pulled me out of the horse herd. But since then, she probably knew that this is something that's always going to be important in my life for me because I was unstoppable with horses.
That's amazing. That is so cool. And I'd love to dive into that a little bit more. But it actually, what you said then was like such a cool segue into what we decided to talk about on this podcast. So we called it, well, you chose the topic, which is projections are a bitch. So first of all, what is a projection? Like, what, for people out there that are watching this podcast that may have never heard this word or have heard it in a certain context, like what is a projection from your point of view?
Well, anything that people like, anything, it's almost like people are looking through a different set of glasses they put on their eyes. So you might see the same thing through a yellow glasses, and they see the same thing as you are looking at from like through their pink glasses. And then, the result, what they are seeing, it's going to be differently colored. So that
Yep.
is kind of a projection for me, but the different light they see through or the different color they see through, it can influence like their opinion about the thing because they will be kind of persuading you that it's pink, but you kind of know it's yellow for you. And then there comes the projection because then you start doubting yourself. Usually you're like, is it really yellow? Because they're really sure that it's pink. And then, you always kind of doubt your own knowing.
Yeah. And it was really cool what you said about when you were out in that horse herd, because your projection was, I'm safe, these horses will take care of me. And then the projection of the owner of the property was, holy shit, this little kid's going to get stampeded and kicked and trampled by these horses. And I just thought that is like a perfect example of what a person's projection looks like, basically. Yeah.
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 And it
So
can,
you
sorry,
go.
it can really actually slide down the hill
Yeah.
because, we all know, well, us that play with animals, we know that the projection, they do hear the projection. So it can result in something that you would not like to create. But sorry, what did you like to?
Well, no, that's exactly, you were answering my question before I asked it, because it was basically then like to start looking at like, how do horses handle projections? Like what does a projection from a person directed at a horse look like? Or what have you seen? Yeah, like what does this create in a horse's world?
I think it's very confusing what I've seen for like with the animals, how they do react on projections. They are confused what we're
Yeah.
asking them. Like what are we asking from them? Because they're like, I know something, they have their own awareness, and then they hear your head and they're like, okay, I am really confused. What do you want from me right now? And what is happening? And maybe I should take your point of view. So, for example, if you're scared of something and you have projection, it's going to be dangerous. Then, the ride, you're going for a ride, and then you're like, my horse is very energetic today. It's going to be dangerous. So, the whole ride, the horse is kind of like, I'm okay. But at the same time, they're searching for the danger because they're aware of what you're thinking. And they're like, well, doesn't seem like, but I think there's danger somewhere because she's scared. So that's the projection, and you can pretty much create the situation through something like this.
Cool. And so
Unfortunately.
like, I know, right? Exactly. And so looking at horses and like how they, and I'm looking out the window because my horses are out there. Like, it's funny on this podcast, like I'm like, my horses, sometimes they'll just start galloping around the paddock and doing crazy things. So when you look at horses and like innately how a horse behaves and how they interact with each other, like you don't put the human in the equation yet. Like, do projections exist for them? Like, is it something that like, what is, like, how does that happen? Like, what is that?
I just see them, I see people as very unclear, and I often kind of like had a little fight with that because a person says A, they think B, and they do Z, and you're like, what the heck? Even even with women,
It's
I
so
like to.
true. We are so confusing. Okay, sorry. I
We
just
are
like,
so confusing. So when women, just like man asks a woman, "Are you okay?" and the woman's like, "Of course I am," while she's thinking, "Damn, I'm not," and then
yeah,
she does opposite to what she's even thinking, and then everybody's like, what the heck just happened?"
yeah,
So horses, they're just clear. They're like, don't do this to me, I don't like this, and if you don't listen to that, they'll show you harder, you
yeah,
know
yeah.
and if they're like, I like this, keep doing it, they'll show you very clearly. So they're just like, yeah.
Clear. I love that. I love that example because I so often try, and I try to like show people what horses can teach us. And that's what I love about, the specialty of conscious horse, conscious rider, because for me it's like creating this bridge of where horses function from and really making it available to us, because they've taught me, and I'm sure you have, like many stories about, like every time I get around my horses, even if it's just to go and feed them, twice a day when I walk down to the paddock, I never walk away without picking up something that they've shown me. And that's so much what I love about the conscious horse, conscious rider classes, and the fact that we have this opportunity. And it's what I desire to share with people all the time, is like how horses can show us this different way of being in the world.
Exactly. And what I love about conscious horse, conscious rider, it doesn't really go after a certain result
Hmm.
because we often don't have this kind of like time for perceiving things around us. like we don't have space and time for it. So we when we go riding and we have a session with the trainer or something, it's just like focused on a certain result. But during conscious horse conscious rider class, you're actually hanging around that big animal. And for example, about the saying A, thinking B, and doing Z, you really become clear on where you are not really even knowing what are you asking, like what are you requesting from the animal, because sometimes you're just like confusing yourself. And that gave me an amazing clarity on where I am saying something that I would like to change something in my life, but I'm not actually really like following up,
Yeah.
and then like really doing steps to change that thing. So like let's say with my business and like with money and money coming in and stuff, I'm like I would love to change it, but then I kind of know what to do for that, but I'm not kind of following there. And then it's just, and then I confuse myself. I'm like, why is it not happening? And
Yeah.
with the horse, you just see this unclear energy where you're like, I would like you to do this, but I'm not really sure if I would like you to do this. And then you're like, why the horse is not listening to me?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And like so much of what you said is where everything that they show us, because then it's like sometimes I'm like, you see all of these ways that horses function, and how do we then bring that into our worlds to start? Because a lot of the time I joke, I'm like, I feel like I'm a bit more of a horse than a person these days. Like I am very direct about things, and I do like it's like, and especially for us and the people out there, where I love how you talked about you're talking about A, you're thinking about B, and you're doing Z. Like it's fucking exactly spot on. Like it's exactly how a lot of people in this world function.
Yeah.
And you get any time around horses, and it's the antithesis. It's the complete opposite of how they behave and how they be in the world and how they are with each other. Like every communication they have is coming from a place of like they don't care about anything. They're just there. They're just present with things. So do you have any like specific examples, either in classes or like when you've been around horses yourself, where you've had a particular projection about something and then seen the result that creates in your world and in the horse's world?
I do love to use as an example behavior of people around stallions,
Uh-huh.
because and very often it happens to people that are actually having a lot of experiences with horses and been around horses for a longer time, because they've seen some not a nice interactions with stallions, and when like the stallion is being very wild and having like a untamable behavior, or like biting people, kicking people, being dangerous pretty much, or being dangerous under the saddle because they're just kind of rearing and like showing off and everything. But during these classes where we are inviting also people that have no experiences with horses, that taught me so much about projections, because even myself, I was kind of like approaching some stallions with a question mark. I'm like, can I trust you? Are you gonna behave? Are you gonna do something, some shenanigans? And then I've seen a person that had no expectations from the horse, and they didn't even know it's a stallion. Like they probably didn't even figure out that there are bulls or something. It was just like a
Just a
big
horse.
dog, just
Yeah.
a dog for some of them. It's a big dog.
Yeah.
And the horse was just so calm and so tame. When you see like a little 3-year-old kid just having a massive horse on a lead,
Yeah.
and the horse just kind of step by step goes and follows the baby, because the baby has nothing in its world that it could go wrong. So
Yeah.
I love this example.
Cool. And that kind of leads into as well, like if you're looking at changing some of this, like, and the cool thing as well is like you don't need to get around horses to start playing with this. I love this conversation because every example that I know of when I talk to horse people about horses, or non-horse people too, and every time I'm in a conscious horse class, everything that comes up with horses can be applied in everyday life. So what are some tools, or like what are some ways people can look at getting out of projections? Like what's the opposite of a projection? Like how can we start playing with not being in that space? Yeah.
I mean, the first, like for me, just the simplest thing is putting barriers down and asking for just being present in that certain situation. I just like, I would not probably sound smart at like right now, but for me it's just like become clear on what is being the confusion there for me,
Yep.
and then just kind of, and then we do have other, I don't know if you're using any tools from Access Consciousness here,
Yeah.
like a clearing
Everything.
statement. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything. Go. Like there's
Go.
no, yes. No rules.
Go girl.
Yeah.
Well, like so far or like lately, my favorite one is just keep using all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. Because if I don't go into this space, I often go into judgment. And
Yeah.
then whenever I realize that I'm judging myself, that something doesn't go according my expectations, then I just put barriers down, ask for all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And I'm always in a question like, what is this? Like, am I projecting here? Am I having expectations? And just asking that and then using clearing statement, and then it usually slowly like reveals itself to me.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. And I love because for me it's like even when I'm in a situation and sometimes you're like, oh shit, something's going on here. And whether it's around people or it's with horses. And for me, it's like the moment I notice something, then I go to question. And for me, it's like a question or to say all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory, which is the not the tagline.
Mantra.
Mantra, thank you. The mantra of Access Consciousness. And the clearing statement you can also find, which is another really powerful and amazing tool from Access Consciousness. There's a website called theclearingstatement.com, where Dane and Simone, I think now sort of explain how it works. But it's this really cool sort of like energetic big broom that just sweeps all the shit out of the way. Like sometimes you're in a situation and it just feels like this huge buildup of energy and it's almost like you get overwhelmed, but you don't know why. So the clearing statement's really there to create like this energetic sweeping of like whatever that energy is. Because the other cool thing I love about horses and the thing they've really shown me is energy is 100,000,000% the language of the universe.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost like what horses can show you is wherever you doubt that energy is not real, oh,
Yeah.
they show you that energy exists.
Yeah. 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 And that's why to them, projections don't exist, judgment, like it's all these things that we've brought into their worlds because for them, they exist on this plane of like everything is energetic. I'm going to show you things energetically. And I know I'm going in a million directions here, but the other thing I love about conscious horse classes is you're basically being facilitated by this, 500-600 kilogram plus animal that's nonverbal. Like they're showing you everything they show you through energy and action and body language.
And what I love on them, they, whenever you come to classes, you usually come there with a little request. What would you like to change? What's your problem? What is kind of, what's just uncomfortable for you at that moment?
Yeah.
And the horse, they do hear that request. And sometimes, I love the example that people sometimes ask, they're done with other people kind of walking all over them. And then during the class, there can be a situation when the horse kind of walks all over you and you're like, what the heck? Like, what did I do wrong? But the horse
Mm.
is just showing you, hey, hey, are you really willing to choose the energy that you were like coming here to change? Like, are you willing to be the dominance, and are you willing to be bigger than me and just showing me you're not going to walk all over me? And it's not
Yep.
from a space to beat up the horse or be nasty to a horse. It's more from because I've seen people kind of reacting to this and they were like, you're not gonna walk all over me, but then the horse is even more confused because they're like, what are you doing now? But if you actually being the expansion into the energy of like, hey, I am the leader here, I am the leading horse here, then the horse would never walk all over you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting exactly what you said because they see like directly into that point in you, like they see past all the other shit right into that very red dot right in the middle that you've hidden from everybody else, including yourself, and they show you that. And I think that's such a great example where you've said, because they will display an energy to a person or a behavior, in an energy in the shape of a behavior, and then the person reacts in a way and the horse is like, but I was just going to the point of what's true here for you. And now they see how people react. And I see so much the confusion in horses' worlds, because they're so, exactly what you said, they're clear and they're kind of, I want to say, pure in their actions and how they do things. And it seems that we're the ones that get confused, rather than being like, in that question of, what is the horse showing me right now? Like, what am I unwilling to be in this situation, that if I could be this, it would change it with ease. I don't need to beat on the horse. I don't need to get angry. I mean, anger for a horse, they don't do anger. They will respond to a situation. They'll create something. And to us, we might call it anger, but a horse doesn't get angry. They don't do
Mhm.
emotions. Yeah.
Takes me back when you were asking, like, if you could be walking through the world of people and behaving like a horse. I was just laughing so hard when Gary Douglas, founder of Access Consciousness, he told me, "Oh, Diana, if you only were behaving like if you were dealing with people the same way you deal with horses." And I'm like, Gary, what does that mean? Like, should I just walk around and kick everyone? Am I going to be bucking at them or something? And he's like, well, it's a joke, but energetically, sometimes you need to be the energy of the kick, of the bite, or other way around, be the energy of total relaxation in
Yep.
a certain situation, or
Yeah.
be the energy being in a question. So I was just kind of laughing, imagining myself kind of biting at people, but at the same time, energetically, if I would do that, then maybe I would just create something else in the universe, like rather than letting people to sometimes walk all over me.
Yeah, I love that. I totally and completely concur with that point of view. I'm like, and it's not about, bucking and kicking and biting people, but it kind of is, like, because what we talked
Imagine.
about, yeah, that action that the horse displays is really just the energy turned into a behavior, because they're taking whatever they're energetically aware of and they're showing it to the other horse through a behavior. But if a person, I use a funny example, like, sometimes when you take your horse out into the field and you let them go, and sometimes they'll just hang with you, sometimes they'll wander off, or sometimes they'll fucking turn tail and just bolt in the other direction, fart and kick up in the air. And like, like, how often, if a person did that, you'd be like, I'm so offended, like that person just ran from me and they were angry at me, or that, and like, we put this whole human emotion on it, but really the horse was just being a horse. Like, and how often do we do these things to each other, where we have the projection of, you behave that way, therefore it means this, when in actual fact the person has like a completely different viewpoint, the yellow glasses and the pink glasses that you mentioned.
That is my probably favorite, like those are my favorite moments during Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider classes, where everyone has a point of view that every animal has to love them. But
It's so true. Oh yes.
same, same as when you come in between a group of people and you're like, I am lovable. Everyone here loves me. Like, you should love me. And you just see the horse that comes, kind of snips the person and just wanders off. And the person's like, he hates me. And I'm like, no, you just don't have anything interesting for him. And there's nothing wrong on it, because for another horse, the person can be the most interesting person in the world. So I'm just like, they're just clear on energy.
Yeah.
And I'm always kind of looking at, like, if we would be functioning like that, there would be so much less lies in the world.
Yep.
You would not have to end up in a situation when you're pretending that the person is super interesting for you and you're like, oh yeah, I would love to hear more from you. And you would just be like, hey, I'm sorry, I just have something else to do. And it
Yep.
would just be much
And it
more
would be
clarity.
okay, and it would
Yeah.
be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love there was a tool that came out in Access, I don't know, I can't remember when, but it was this thing of like, what if it wasn't personal? Like, and that's when I watched, because everything that comes up in Access I obviously take into my horses and have them show me the version that they know of it. And that when Ollie did that one day, I let him go and he literally just turned and bucked off into the field and farted and like did his thing. And I was like, it's so interesting because once upon a time, or if a person did that, there would be a place in my world where I would make it personal about me. But there is nothing in that horse's world, and there is never anything in a horse's world where they make it personal. Like, and it was so cool for me to see that example of where horses never do personal.
No. And your horse will be sometimes different than it was the day before. Same
Totally.
same as anything else in your life can be different the day after. So if you will be functioning, and I mean, if you'll see it with the animals when you're around them and you would actually take it into your world, you would live so much more lighter and happier and more joyful because you would not go into a black hole of like what happened, why they hate me or why the
Yeah.
world hates me, and you just
Yeah.
be like, okay, it's different today. What else can I choose?
Yeah. And it's such a cool thing with relationships, I find as well, because how often with every relationship in our lives, like colleagues, family, our actual partners, like all of these relationships where we create these things in our world, whereas you hang out with the horse or horses for any number of days in a row, and you will see every moment of every day, your relationship with them is based on that moment in time. It's not based on, and they'll remember some things. Like if you're an asshole to a horse, they will generally remember that. They tend to remember, quote unquote, the uncomfortable things because they're generally moving through life towards safety, towards things that are going to improve their way of life, to things that are going to improve their chances of survival. So they're generally hardwired to survive. Like that's how they've come hundreds of thousands of years to still be alive on this planet as a baseline prey
Yeah.
animal. Like everything eats them. There's nothing in the world apart from grass that they're interested in eating. Like everything eats them, and they're big and juicy and they've got a lot of meat. So obviously there's a lot of things out there that want to eat them. So they're always gravitating towards the things that are going to create a life of thrival and survival for them. So yeah, I just love seeing how they interact with each other and with me and other people, and using that as such a cool example of how I create the relationships in my life and what they've shown me there as well. Yeah.
With the memory of a horse, what they do remember, they would generally choose something that would like that would improve their life. So
Yeah,
they would not lean towards something that actually makes their lives crappy or hard or painful.
exactly.
Where was I going with this?
See,
I had a good thought and it
it
left
happens to me all the time. I'm like,
way
I
with
need
a
to like
horse.
write things down. Yeah, you're being a horse now. It's gone.
It just went to a pasture. No, I know it's back. It came back to me, yes. But like as you've already mentioned, horses are not keeping or like they're not memorizing that you did something wrong
Yeah,
a week ago, so they would not be angry with you that I don't know you just saddled them wrong and it was a
yeah.
little uncomfortable for them. They would not just walk around in the pasture and be like, I'm never going to hang out with
Thinking
that person
about
ever
it.
again. People do this. So it's another great example of what we can learn from a horse, because keeping these things in you and doing the I have to forgive them, that just kind of like glues us with so much of yuckiness that I'm like, no, why would you even deal with that? Just let it go
Yeah.
and change it in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And the other thing I've found with them with that energy too is if you're willing to just be vulnerable, and I fuck up with my horses all the time. I do shit and I'm like, I probably shouldn't have done that. Like that created something that I really actually didn't want to create. And but if I'm like, oh, if I'm like, I'm steadfast in this, I'm right, or if I'm like, I'm so wrong here, I'm messed up now, and exactly like you said, you carry that that energy, that emotion with you. it's so confusing to the horse, and it's obviously creating a whole bunch of shit in your world. Whereas if I just look at my horse and I'm like, dude, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have probably done that way. Like, the horse is like, dude, it's fine. Let's just move on with life and like get on with it. Like there's nothing in there. And that's what I love about them too, because they will forgive anything if you're willing to, for lack of a better word, ask for their forgiveness. They're like, slate's clean, let's go. They're future bound animals. They don't live in the past like we do, carrying around all of these burdens. So yeah.
Well, and if they do carry a burden, then during a conscious horse, conscious rider class, that actually can change because even horses do have their points of views, and sometimes they can have things happening in their bodies or going on in their bodies, and they might have a point of view that they have to heal something or they have to contribute to something. And this class is amazing in that it can also change the point of view for the horse, for the animal, through these tools of access consciousness. So it's wonderful. And also back to what you were saying with the right and wrong, this class is such an invitation to not go into wrongness of yourself. Because yes, if you're not a horse person, you'll fuck up during the class. You'll do something that the horse
Even if
person
you
would
are a
not.
horse person, you'll probably fuck up.
Exactly. And yes, and I love that because when you are a horse person, we are using tools that you're not usually using. And like if you kind of like yeah, if you've learned English riding or if you've learned, I don't know, dressage riding, that you just kind of like go and you have certain structure in how you function with your horses. And this class is not really like using all the structures that you used. So it's gonna put you in a question, like at least a question of what the fuck is happening.
Yeah.
And it's still a question.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I mean, see, 32 minutes gone already. And I'm like, did we just start or what's happening? So I would love, like, thank you so much for being on here. And I mean, I'd love to have you on again and we can explore a little bit more about stuff. But in particular, these classes, like, every time I talk about what shows up here for people, like, I mean, even in this 30 minutes, we've covered like right and wrong, projections, energy, communication, like leadership, like all of these things that horses have taught us and that we've seen them show and be for people in this world. And I want to keep asking questions, but I think we'll wrap this episode up for now. And I would love to have you back on and drill into a few of these things a little bit more. But before we go, if people are interested in knowing more about this, like where can they get in touch with you? Where can they find out more information? Anything else that you want to leave us with before we wrap it up?
I'm bad. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm not as good as you. I probably my New Year's resolution should be posting more and talking more to people because I often go into I rather do the things than talk about them. So like I am usually quiet when I'm around horses because I just actually want to create and see the change when I'm playing with them and working on some changes when they not having the most and loveliest behavior and stuff like that. But we do have some upcoming classes with Susie Gozzi. Will be in Italy very soon in March, co-facilitating the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider class. Then I have a couple classes here in Czech Republic. And I mean, you all know if you would like to become a facilitator that there comes up a CF class also with me and Susie and a Kinder surprise person that I don't know if you talk about or not. But yeah, I promised to myself that I'll post more and maybe do a blog or something like that. So that's
Cool.
my resolution.
Cool. And I totally get it. It's such a muscle. And my secret is hire people that like doing it because I don't. I have three people that work for me to get me out into the world because Diana, I'm the same. I would rather spend 6 hours in the fields with my horses than even think about, it's funny. The reason I love algorithms on Facebook and Instagram is because 90% of the content it shows me is horse related. So that's one thing I like about algorithms is I can be sitting on, if I do want to like have a bit of just brain dead scrolling time, I can get on Instagram and Facebook and it's basically showing me horses for sale, horse videos, funny things about horses, cute things that horses do. So I hear you, sister. It's a muscle.
It's a different Netflix for a horse, not because This is our bed night. Like that's my bed night story. I
Yeah.
just scroll through the horse videos. But
Yeah, I love it so much. So yeah, I totally understand. But we'll find you on socials and we'll post in the wherever you're watching this replay. I've got it on my website. We'll have it on Facebook as well, and we'll pop some ways that you can stalk Diana softly and hardly on Instagram, Facebook, and in real life. So she's obviously covering a lot of Europe at the moment, but traveling the world eventually as well. And that's the cool thing about Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, and Access Consciousness. I mean, you're also a facilitator. So doing bars classes, foundation classes, these other fucking amazing classes in Access Consciousness that we both know have changed every aspect of our life and continue to do so. 10 years for me down the track, and there's not a day I don't wake up and learn a billion new things based on these tools. So yeah, so whether it's a Conscious Horse class or something else, please track Diana down. And if it's not one of us, there's many Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider facilitators around the world doing these classes. So find one in your local area or invite a Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider facilitator to come to your area,
great
right?
idea.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
we can come. We've got passports. We're willing to travel,
we
and
can
we love
travel
horses. We'll go anywhere.
for a
Cool.
horse, of course.
Anything for horses. Cool. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being amazing. Thank you for being on this planet and loving horses and being such a contribution to them in this world. Sorry, one last thing. I love what you mentioned about these classes, because we were talking a lot about what the horses can facilitate for us. But at least 50% of this class is what we facilitate for them, being there with them, the changes that we can be for their bodies and for themselves and for everything in their world, where they actually have people around them that are willing to listen, that are willing
Yeah.
to ask questions, and that are willing
Yeah.
to look at a different possibility and a different reality with them. So yeah, I'm so grateful for everyone that shows up to a Conscious Horse class, because whatever that horse shows you, they're getting at least, 10 times that in return. So yeah, cool.
And even though you don't have any horses in your life and you're not around horses, you will very possibly find horses and like include them and implement them in your life. Watch out, that's one warning from us. You will probably end up having horses in your life more after this class because you will be probably asking for more of that energy. But even though you don't have any horses and you're not a horse person, you will just walk the world different way after this class.
Yeah. And horses need us. They need more people like us in the world that are actually friggin' willing to listen to them. So if this pings you in any way whatsoever, please get around horses. Please come to one of these classes and be the contribution of something different in the horse world that we can all be for them as well. So okay, now I'm really wrapping it up. Thank you so much. You are wonderful. And thank you for watching, everyone. And we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.